My name is John Passfield, and I'm going to read from my novel, John Passfield, Saturday Morning. The title of this reading will be Saturday Morning, Video 11, The Jobs That I Have Had. Here's the cover of the novel. John Passfield, Saturday Morning, two kids on a little white roadster, 1960 Austin Healey Sprite, and a novel by John Passfield. The name at the top is John Passfield, the 21-year-old would-be writer. The name at the bottom is John Passfield, the 75 last year writer. Here's the summary on the back of the book. 21-year-old would-be writer John Passfield spends his last few months as a garbage collector on the streets of his hometown, St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada, in the summer of Canada's centennial year, 1967. As he works, he compares the imagery of his own life so far and of his upcoming marriage and pending career as a high school teacher to the imagery of the great books that he's reading, all while in pursuit of building the perfect load of garbage. The main character of this novel, myself, John Passfield at 21 years old, is peering into the dark of his future and wondering what is in store for him. The flashlight or lantern that he's holding up as a means of peering ahead in the dark is the image pattern of the jobs that he has had in the past. 6 past jobs are considered in the course of the novel as the main character is collecting garbage on the street. To keep this reading short, I will present just 4 of these jobs. So, is your life going to be like the jobs you've had in the past? Meaningful jobs, meaningless jobs? Let's have a look. The first on page 16 is my one-day job selling tickets for service stations or gas stations, we might say petrol stations in England and so on. I see a notice in the newspaper. Boys wanted for service station work. Come over on Saturday early if you want a job. All week I think of how nice it'll be. Only a couple of blocks from my home, pumping gas, cleaning windshields, checking oil. That's before self-service. Hey, this is 1967. Then we go to page 34. Now, the point being that he's collecting garbage all through the novel, and he's thinking about that, but he's thinking about many other things as well. So we went from page 16 to 34. That's what, 15 pages or so if you do the math, of other thoughts. But here's the service station thought coming back again, eh? My one-day job selling tickets for service stations. I'm sending a carload of boys to Chatham, just a short distance down the 401. That's a little town along the highway. There's a gas station under new management. Expect the tickets to sell quite fast. People will snap them up when you tell them what they will gain. For every $10 ticket you sell, there will be $1 for you. Sell one ticket at every household all the way up and down the block, and you're going to need a sack to carry your dough. So, okay, it's not working at the local gas station, but it's selling tickets at $1 a ticket, and they'll sell like hotcakes. Well, let's move on from page 34 to page 61. So, another 30 pages of thoughts on other topics, and then the gas station thought rises to the surface of the mind again. My one-day job selling tickets for service stations. Knocking on doors up and down the streets of Chatham, this other town he's gone to. The gas station is under new management, and people don't know the owner at all. Nobody wants to buy a block of tickets from a boy they don't know. The older boy in the car drives up and down slowly while the rest of us knock on doors. $10 for a ticket. Number of car washes, number of cleanings, number of changes of oil. Cheaper if you buy a ticket than if you pay for each service on its own. I stand at the door and explain that this is a wonderful deal. Okay, from page 61 we go to page 87. Skipping an awful lot of other thoughts, but coming back to it. Riding all the way back to St. Thomas in the back of the car. Chatham is hundreds of miles from St. Thomas on the 401, the highway. I didn't sell a thing. The others had a tough time selling, but most of them sold a few. Only one other boy and I didn't sell a thing. The clock glows on the dashboard. The day is getting dark. So, If I'm working for a percentage of the sales I make, and I haven't made any sales, that means I haven't earned a dime. I've traveled and worked for more than 8 hours, and I won't get a thing. Then the last item, page 115, quite a ways along in his thoughts, but other thoughts impinge on this, Thoughts modify other thoughts, thoughts comment on other thoughts. But here's this thought. My one-day job selling tickets for service stations, I walk home under the streetlights and into the living room. Dad looks up from the newspaper. Mom comes out from the kitchen and says hello. We drove over and bought some gas. Thought you could clean our windshield and check our oil. The attendant who pumped our gas said a whole bunch of you kids went off on a job. So, what was the job? How much did you make? Did you have a good day? Well, is your future going to be like that? I mean, is this a pattern? It is an experience. Is it a pattern of future futility? Hate to use that word, but I mean, is it a pattern of what your life might turn out to be? Well, at 21, you don't know. All you have is the possibility. Let's go to page 25 and pick up on another past job, which might be a future pattern of one's whole existence. That time I didn't get the job. Sitting in an office in a factory in London, a nearby town from my hometown, St. Thomas. I'm about to become a teacher. I'm about to get married. Right now, I need a summer job. Been to all the St. Thomas factories to apply and haven't heard back from even one. So now I'm visiting all the factories in the industrial park in London. The secretary's having me fill out a form. What sort of future do you see yourself as establishing with our firm? Okay, from page 25 we go to page 43, leaving out again an awful lot of other images. Page 43. Sitting in an outer office in a factory in London. 2 people in an inner office chatting about the vacations that they've had. About the vacations they might or might not take this year. 2 people who seem to have all the time in the world. I hope to cover a number of factories. I have their addresses and my route all mapped out. One of these 2 chatterboxes is supposed to interview me for a job. How many hours are these 2 going to talk like this? Well, that's page 43. Let's go to page 70 and pick up on this particular thought. Sitting in an outer office in a factory in London, listening to 2 people in the inner office chatting about their vacation plans. Well, we always go up to the cottage, but that can get boring after a while, so maybe we'll throw a few clothes in the car and hit the road, taking the sights in some of the cities. Lots of centennial projects this year. Feeling stifled in the office, getting tired of the heavy load. Get away from this factory for a while and breathe some fresh air. So the idle chatter goes on while he waits in the outer office. Page 97 is the next installment of this particular thought among many, many other thoughts on life and where it's taking one. Sitting in an inner office in a factory in London, the man is taking time out from talking vacations to give me an interview. So, John, is it? Have a seat. This won't take long. So, what is your story? He sits and stares at me, and I stare at him. What's my story? What does that mean? Does he ask me why I want a summer job? Or what sort of future do I see myself as establishing with his firm? Well, a little bafflement there, and then we go to 123 for the final installment of this memory, which might be a pattern of life itself. That time when I didn't get the job, sitting in an inner office, the interviewer and me. So, you've obviously filled out the application form. Have you checked off every box to the best of your ability? Too early to tell about hiring. Don't know yet how the summer will go. Just leave it there on the desk. The secretary will file it. If something comes up, we'll be sure to let you know. If you don't hear from us, then the obvious answer is no. So, some things lead to futility and emptiness. The militia, 18. Page 18. Is this a pattern of one's future life? All you know is what's happened to you so far, but if you see patterns in them, you can maybe project the future, eh? Project in the sense of what you'd like to try to have happen in a similar way, success, reward, pattern of what you'd like to avoid, lack of success, a lot of energy put out, no reward. My summer in the militia, the St. Thomas Armories, standing at ease in a large hall. The sergeant major is giving a talk. When he turns his back, I look around the room. So strange to be in this building, where my mother spent her teenage years. Her dad, my Grandpa Davies, was a sergeant of the mess, a former Marine in the First World War. In the 1930s, the sergeant of the mess of the local armories. She was living here when she first met my dad before the Second World War. I see a door at the end of the hall that probably leads to where they had their apartment, at the back where no cadet is allowed to go. The whole Davies family lived here for a dozen years or more. I'll never get to see where they used to live, so I never have seen that. I've been in the armies, of course, as a cadet, but where my family lived, my mom's family lived like 20 years, 15 years before I was born. I've never seen that. My hidden past, I guess. Page 36. My summer in the militia, the St. Thomas Armories. We sit in a briefing room. The sergeant major is giving a talk. First, your skin will turn blue, then your hair will start to fall out, and then your vital functions will begin to shut down. Then your skin will start to melt and fall off the bone. We sit at the table in the briefing room with our pencils and our notebooks and write it all down. Well, this was the Cold War. It's 1960. I was 15 years old. And so as a militia, we were getting prepared for the dropping of the atomic bomb if the USSR decided to go ahead with the Third World War. So you're sitting there writing down your future. Your future is your skin will turn blue, your hair will fall off, and your flesh will melt off the bone. Oh, okay, that might be my future. Not necessarily a good thing to look forward to. So, okay, let's go to 63. My summer in the militia, the St. Thomas Armories. We sit in a briefing room. The sergeant major is giving a talk. Your work will be vital after the drop takes place. The enemy will target the largest population zones. The atomic bomb will wipe out all the major facilities. Everyone here in this room will be assigned to traffic control. You'll be stationed on the periphery of Target Zero. You will inform the fleeing populace as to where to access the necessities, such as shelter and food. The roads will be busy after the bomb is dropped, so you will be busy as well. Many thousands will flee the contamination zone. So again, the Cold War, when the atomic bomb is dropped, we 15-year-olds would be stationed at the edge of Target Zero, and as people were fleeing the waves of radiation, we would be standing there pointing out where the food and water could be located for them. Is my life going to be absurd in the future? I don't know, but if I look at the patterns of the past, there might be some clue there. Okay, let's go on to 90, page 90. Again, lots and lots of thoughts on many, many topics about the past, present, and future, but once in a while I thought about the militia and what this job might be suggesting about what life's going to be like. We sit outside in a circle in the shade of the trees beside the parade square. The sergeant major is giving a talk. The sergeant major is praising the best cadet in the squad. We've all been given an old rusty bayonet and a piece of steel wool. We've all cleaned our bayonets for half an hour. The best cadet's bayonet gleams like Excalibur. How did he get it to shine like that in half an hour? The sergeant major tells us that we all should have done the same. A couple of guys away from me, there's a whisper, so low that the sergeant major can't hear. Wouldn't want to stab an enemy with a rusty sword. So the absurdity, you're going to have bosses in future and they're going to give you jobs to do. And the absurdity of taking a rusty bayonet, shining it up so it's not rusty, so you can go stab an enemy. And that's logical to the person above you. But the guy on the ground says, well, wouldn't a rusty bayonet do a better job if you stab an enemy than a shiny bayonet? Are we trying to save his life or do away with his life? So the prospect of absurd jobs, 40 years grinding away at a job that might seem absurd to you, ridiculous, is a possibility. Okay, let's go to 117 as a kind of a capper of this thought of the militia as a pattern of future existence. Let me find it here first. Here it is. Grandpa Davies, my grandfather, my mother's father, thinks it's amusing. I don't happen to think it is. I'm complaining about the militia. They lined us up for pay drill and put $100 on the table, and they kept $1.50 for the regimental tie. They didn't ask us if we wanted to buy one. I'm sure not going to wear a tie to school. My grandpa smiles and says, welcome to the Army. Of course, he was an old Royal Marine from the British Army of the First World War. He knew what the Army was all about. Welcome to the Army, he says. I say, I'm not in it anymore. We handed in our uniforms before we got paid. All month for $100? They make you buy a tie? My grandpa smacks his hand a few times on the arm of a rocking chair. I was going to ask him about living in the armies, but I get up and go. Maybe you tell me some other time when I stop after school. So I used to stop. I had a car in high school, and I'd stop and talk to my grandpa, who sat in a rocking chair on the porch. And my mom said, well, when he starts to smack his hand on the arm of the rocking chair, that means he wants you to leave. So I would leave. So that's the militia as a pattern of future employment, or just a future life, a life of seeming futility, but making perfect sense to the people who have charge of your life and tell you what they want you to do for 8 hours a day or more. Okay, page 27. This will be the fourth and final one I'm reading. Here it is. 27, yeah. My one-day taxi job. The garbage isn't hiring. All of last summer's guys are coming back this year. I should never have quit working there. Now I need a summer job. I start to work as a teacher in September. I won't get paid till October the 1st. The taxi owner gives me a lecture about how the buses are subsidized while the taxis are not. So, pretty important to him, but you sit there and just listen because there's something more important to you. You want a job. Okay, then we go to page 45. Again, skipping many, many pages of other thoughts. Sitting and waiting in the taxi office. The taxis are on the lot. The driver next to me on the bench turns and talks. I don't yike feut, he says. He smiles and his teeth are like a graveyard. Sorry, I say, I don't quite know what you mean. Some of the stones in the graveyard are broken and worn. I don't yike feut, he says, but I can't tell what he wants to tell me. His skin is pasty and he constantly blinks his eyes. Many of the gravestones are missing. He looks at me and repeats himself, getting louder and louder each time. I don't yike feut. I don't yike feut. I don't yike feut. Well, I don't like fruit, And like his teeth and skin showed that he didn't eat fruit, but the inability to communicate with some of the people you're stuck living your life with, forced to live your life with, almost as if you're speaking two different languages sometimes, Is that a pattern for my future relationships? Something important to someone else that I can't even understand, let alone respond to, and certainly doesn't really concern me. So anyway, 72 is the next installment after many, many thoughts on other topics. The next installment of this one-day taxi job. Driving a drunk down to Union, that's a nearby little village. A couple of miles out of town, the dispatcher tells me he'll owe me $2.50. He stumbles out of the door and falls on the lawn. I get out and have a look, and he's out like a light. How to get the $2.50? Can't be rifling through his pockets. Calling softly, but he's pretty well gone. If I don't get the $2.50, I'll have to pay his fare myself. He could sleep here on the lawn all night long. So you're driving a taxi, you're not only not going to get the fare, which means you won't get paid, but you'll have to pay the fare, so you'll actually lose money. on the job if he doesn't wake up. Well, let's go to 99 and see what happens. Stuck in Union without my fare. The customer is as drunk as a man can be, sleeping soundly while I wait to get my fare. A light goes on in the house as I step up onto the porch. His daughter comes out on the lawn. Dad, 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 this man wants you to pay so he can go. She takes the money out of his pocket and gives me the fare. I help her carry him into the house and slump him down in a moth-eaten chair. I get in my taxi and drive back into town. So sometimes we'll get into trouble and get out again, eh? Maybe that'll be a pattern for my life. Every scrape I get into will have a happy ending. 126. The last installment. My one-day taxi job. The boss of the garbage company calls. You still interested in coming back? The couple of guys we had here last summer didn't return. Turns out we can use you after all. Never did garbage smell so sweet. I thank him and tell him I'll be down at the yard first thing in the morning. I phone the taxi company and tell them I won't be coming in. Sorry to quit like this, but I found another job. So no matter how bad life can be, sometimes there's a worse position to be in, eh? And sometimes a worse position gives way to a better position. But these are all possible patterns for the future, but based on patterns of the past. That's the point. So how can the past tell the future? Well, the past is information. It is known. The future is speculation. It is not known. We live by patterns, patterns of event and patterns of response to event. So it makes sense that one of our defense mechanisms, one of our survival mechanisms, is to turn the information of our past into imagery, into patterns of potential future events, as a means of preparing for the future. Potential future imagery works not so much as a crystal ball. Imagery cannot tell us exactly what's going to happen, but as an illuminator of the significance of what has happened in the past. Imagery can tell us what we have initiated in the past and how those plans paid out over the course of time. Imagery can show us the patterns of what has happened to us in the past and the patterns of how we have reacted in the past. If we create complex image patterns in our minds, this book is 50,000 words, one thought in the mind of the main character. If we create complex image patterns in our minds, if we turn enough information stories into imagery, we can prepare ourselves to control the many possibilities of the future, if possible, or at least to react to the future in positive ways. In a literary imitation of what is generally a subconscious image exercise, thinking, I chose 6 jobs that I had worked at during the years before I became 22. Surely an exploration of the 6 jobs will give enough patterns of past experience to help the main character of this novel to be able to recognize and respond to whatever patterns of experience there might be in the now illuminated future, the imagery illuminated future that stretches out in front of him. In any case, whether the main character will be successful in life or not, this is the way in which the mind employs imagery as a means of thought. So, the book, once again, John Passfield, Saturday Morning, is available on Amazon. Have a look. There's information there. It's available at my publisher's website, rocksmillspress.com, rocksmillspress.com, and at John Passfield CA, John Passfield, all one word, .ca. There's 2 books. The Planning Notebook, just click on the icon. It's there for free to read. How I planned and wrote the novel, and a journal. Click on the icon. It's there for free to read. It's what I thought of the novel when I first completed it and was polishing it. So have a look at those if you're interested in writing and all the things that I have thought about as I've been writing and polishing this novel and other novels. Lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.